You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1110, titled Starfall. And Travis, I guess that means the stars aren't aligning on all of our various One Piece theories from the last chapter, just most of them.
Just most of them. The falling stars are like shooting stars, so I guess you could say that our theories are like wishes we're sending up to Oda.
That's cute.
To
I like
let
that,
us be right.
I'm your regular Johnny Cricket, As usual, we're going to be discussing... Oh, that makes you the Blue Fairy. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this point. So if you have not yet read chapter 1110, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app. Linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release, or whenever you want, if you are subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we are and do recommend. Lots to get into this week, and before we do, I'm a little nervous, so I'm going to just text all my friends. I love doing that. I can just take my phone, and I'm kind of sad about something though, Travis, because I love texting my friends. I have two or three in my whole life, but I wish I had like One Piece friends, Like I wish I had friends who liked One Piece that I could text them and be like, hey, I'm going to do Rookie Pirate Radio. But, my friends are like my mom, my dad, and one of my sisters. And so they don't watch or read One Piece. So they won't understand what I'm talking about. Yeah.
There's so much lore that you're dumping right now that I almost want to go into instead. But for now, I will tell you that if you want to make some friends, there is an option for you. You're gonna love this. So there's this app. It's called Discord.
Oh,
and
wait, I've heard of this app. Oh, Travis, this is embarrassing.
Yeah,
I got banned from Discord.
You got banned? What did you do to get banned from Discord? There's a lot you can do without getting banned from Discord.
I have a friend who works at Discord, and we were at a mutual friend's birthday the other day. And this is my third friend that I mentioned before. And he told me that I can no longer use Discord, and I'm banned from it for life because I'm a fan of One Piece. And so that's why we're not friends anymore. But, hey, what if I could just text him and just be like, hey, can I not be banned from it anymore? Because I like Discord. Discord's fun.
Yeah, and if you do get unbanned, you can rejoin the In Between Drafts Discord, which is linked in the show notes as always. And there you can make some friends because we have One Piece channels specifically dedicated to spoilers. So you could come in and instead of having to type in all those phone numbers and everything and send an SMS and hope that they got it, you can just post all of your crazy theories in there.
That does sound easier.
It's a little bit easier. You're going to have to get unbanned, though. That's going to be number one.
Well, in the meantime, I guess I could use email. That's
I was going to say, in the meantime, you could send an email to rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Slow down, Travis. You're
right.
Time.
It was a little fast. It's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Thank you.
But I will note that that's more for other people to get in touch with us. If you use it, you'll just be emailing me, basically.
Right.
And that's more or less what this show is.
Also emailing myself, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean,
grocery lists. And I really do have a friend who works at Discord. Like, that's real. And he's in the In Between Drafts Discord. That's a real thing.
We should clarify that you are not banned from Discord.
You don't know that.
so that people don't go like tweeting at them.
Where is he? No, the people in the spoilers channel, they know that I'm not banned from Discord because I've been on a tear. By tear, I mean I just like post one image. That's whatever.
It was a good image today.
It was a fun one.
It was fire. That was good.
I like that one. Yeah. But okay, so let's get into these main beats, Travis Hymas, because W's for us. Because cover story. We said for ages. Like it's so obvious. Of course. Wano cover story. It's gonna be Yamato, maybe Momonosuke.
Literally doing the pilgrimage thing. We clocked that spot on. That
so long ago too.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm happy for us. We don't always get W's, but it needs to happen once in a while. Once in a blue fairy moon. But I want to point out that I do like that it seems like there might be some interlocking stories, maybe because we saw Onigashima, right, last week. It was underwater. So it seems like it's not just going to be Yamato like hanging out with like a frog or something, but it could also be like, hey, what happened to the Toby Roppo? What if they're in Udon prison and we check in with them? Like there's a lot of stuff here.
I've heard two notable things kind of bouncing around the community that I think are really, really worth considering for this. And number one is not just that the Toby Roppo are kicking around, but that Yamato might form a group of her own with vassals. And an ex-Toby Roppo member would be pretty appropriate for that because they know her, right? Like there's already a relationship there. But additionally, Odin's pilgrimage ended with him going to the sea to join a Yonko specifically. So, not even though he wasn't at the time. So we could be seeing that all play out entirely into eventually what would prompt Yamato to leave Wano and hypothetically rejoin with the Straw Hats, that kind of thing, which we kind of
maybe
also
have a run
as an idea.
Yeah, maybe have a run with the Whole Cake Pirates or something, because I think the Big Mom Pirates are still around, like looking for Big Mom or something.
We could find out what happened. Like, do we have confirmation of Big Mom and Kaido being like KO'd or done for? But this also probably could, I would say more than likely at this point, tailspin into paying off good old Caribou's storyline as well.
Yeah, we'll put a pin on that and get to it later for sure. This is volume 2 from last week's cover story, picking up with quote, Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage. I want to travel throughout Wano like Odin did. I love it. Perfectly named. And we'll discuss it a little bit later, but on to the chapter itself. So, okay, Starfall. The other 4 Gorosei have arrived on Egghead. It is official. They have caught the attention of various Marines around the island, just noticing their presence, basically. Also, the Giants have noticed them as well in different spots where they are. We even see an ominous panel of the Chamber of Power back in Marijoa being chillingly empty, as the voiceover from Vegapunk's post-death broadcast points out that we have about 7 minutes remaining before he reveals the truth of the world. So it was like 10 minutes a few chapters ago. It's moving. Like we're moving through this. This ain't Frieza. This ain't Namek. There's stuff happening. But anyway, in an absolutely glorious, wonderful, jaw-dropping double-page spread, frame it immediately, we see the 5 elders sprawled across the pages in their yokai forms. They include Saint J. Garcia Saturn as a Gyuki, so we get the official label for that. Saint Margus Mars as an Itsumare, Saint Topman Workury as a Feng Shi, Saint Ethan Baron V. Nusuro as a Bakotsu, Shepherd Jupiter, still my favorite name about all of these, as a Sandworm, Dune now in theaters, and who else, Travis, is staring them down, gaping at all 5 of them than our boy, Monkey D. Luffy, in the foreground. Unbelievable. It's been a while since we got a double-page spread. So happy to see it here. The 5 elders waste no time springing into action. They are not hesitating. Nusuro freeze cuts about half the pacifistas around the entire island, seemingly in seconds. Mars tries to attack the barrier to the Lapo face to obviously get to the broadcast, but it so far looks like they have been unsuccessful. Jupiter and Saturn immediately go after Luffy. Luffy tries to attack Jupiter with a kick, but then he dives into the ground sandworm style. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats are trying to finish their evacuation. Sanji's frantically telling everyone they need to leave immediately. Usopp has just used his bamboo star attack thing to stop the Sunny from flying away because, of course, we saw, of course, like Brook had the ice clouds or whatever moving the Sunny. Usopp kind of managed it off screen. Well done. And we see a nice little Brook and Lilith continuing their little frenemy thing going on there. But also Usopp tells Sanji that Zoro and Jinbei are still unaccounted for. They haven't come back. We cut to Zoro and Lucci's fight, and after hearing Sanji call Zoro a liability over the radio broadcasting, Zoro dodges one of Lucci's attacks and uses a new 3-sword move called Hyuhyuva Spot Hunt, which looks to do some serious damage. Back to Luffy's fight against the elders. Jupiter is in his sandworm form, tries to swallow Luffy right from underneath him, but then Dorry and Brogy show up just in time to slice the sandworm into multiple pieces. they and Luffy are all smiling. They're having their reunion, and then the chapter comes to kind of a somewhat abrupt end. And I don't know if we have a break next week, but or I don't know, we don't, because I have the Raws ready to read tomorrow morning. So no break.
No break this week.
That's right. And again, kind of a short chapter. It's only like 17 pages. So this is a quicker recap than most. But those pages kind of, I mean, that was a lot in its own way.
It is. I think this is something I was discussing with friends, which I do have, I promise.
You don't have to give a number. It's okay.
I was discussing with friends, literally 2 of them. But, in the past, we would have gotten the Reverie teas of their forms, and then we would have had piecemeal hints about this for an arc or 2, maybe even longer. Think about how long it's been since we got a silhouette of Vegapunk to now. This is if you needed more convincing that we are in end game territory, it is the fact that we went from this is a thing that like the Gorosei can turn into monsters to this is what those monsters look like in the same arc. Unprecedented tempo here.
Yeah.
And what a reveal.
It's so final. Like I saw some people even complaining almost of like, oh man, this feels a little rushed. And I'm like, excuse me, this has been set up for decades. And like, yes, we are getting a lot like in this arc, but come on, it's been over 50 chapters. And this is where Oda kind of like, look, he's been cooking for a long time. He needs to start plating these dishes. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those questions, right? We've had for years this like implication that we've more or less projected onto Luffy that like he's going to take on the world government and take it down and yada yada yada. Whereas Luffy, the character, has told us many, many times that he's not directly interested in doing that. He needs motivation. He's going to need to be brought into this. That's what's happening right now. We have the 5 elders have come to him because he was never going to go to them. So this is important for the overall structure of what the rest of this saga turns into. I do not think, I was very much not the guy who thought we were going to get Saturn defeated to begin with. It's very clear now that that's not going to happen. We are on the back.
There's no time.
There's no time.
And it really seems to me, because I think what's going to happen in the next chapter, I do think that like we keep seeing like the Gorosei keep getting attacked. Like Saturn keeps taking all these hits and he just keeps coming back. He keeps regenerating, right? And this has me so curious about like several things. First of all, we had in that Germa 66 cover story, the whole thing where Vegapunk goes to meet the 5 elders. And it was a while ago, right? He still had his big head. He doesn't get the antenna until later. And I know you and I have speculated in the past, right? About like, if he got the idea to clone himself and to like have these different satellites, I really am wondering if that's the kind of thing that we are having for the 5 elders. If they are satellites for Emu or even somebody else or whatever. Because the fact that they just keep bouncing back, like, there's got to be some kind of limit. I know I've brought this up before. The fact that they show up here and they don't have a monologue. They are down to business. Like these guys are not effing around. They immediately, like, they're a team. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they need to accomplish. And yes, it's partly because, I think mainly because there's a time limit. They have 7 minutes. They know that they can't let this broadcast go out. But on top of that, I honestly wonder, there's got to be some kind of time limit to their abilities and what they're able to do here. Now, what we can tell, like an indicator is going to be Saturn himself, right? Because he's been in action longer. We don't have like a firm time frame on that, but like, I'm wondering, if there is going to be some kind of like issue with him at some point in which he can't do something because it's been like, I don't know. You see what I'm saying though? Is like now that we saw their forms, we kind of see a little bit of what they can do, their abilities, but what else? Like, I want more rules, more logic.
So this is where, since you brought up the satellite theory as well, which, from a rhyming standpoint is actually pretty good as a theory. I like that logic. There is, of course, the text boxes explaining what, demonic entities they represent, which I do like that they're not all yokai. I like that there's this kind of international propagation because that makes more sense based on what we know of the world government and specifically these guys. So I like this idea that they didn't all come from the same place. And notably, these are the text boxes that are usually used to reveal devil fruit information. But that's not what happens here. We just get names. So it's one of two things. They're not devil fruits, or there's information still being held back. I am still personally leaning towards information being held back. There's something Oda doesn't want to confirm for us yet. So we get this information instead to kind of make up the difference. I've thought about they're just demons theory. And the only problem that I have with it is that would be a little bit lackluster compared to everything else so far. One of the things that I think has been notable about One Piece is even with all of the supernatural elements that have always existed in the series, everything from devil fruits to, ghosts technically being real, necromancy, kind of these ideas of like fate and stuff being this kind of invisible force, they've never taken prominence in the story. And the idea that like mortals have been subjugated by like this like inherently supernatural or demonic force does feel just a little bit like a cop out, I guess. It's probably Naruto trauma more than anything else, but I do think that like even the fact that like devil fruits seem to have some sort of scientific basis, One Piece science, but science nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to subscribe directly to the theory that like these are monsters that have taken a human form. I much more subscribe to the idea that these are, mortals. I don't want to necessarily say humans because it could be a different race we're dealing with here, but, mortals that have ascended to some sort of celestial form, kind of similar to Luffy. I think that functions better in the story structure. I think that's what's going on. And that is why I think the satellite theory makes a lot of sense. I don't think that the Gorosei aren't like sentient or they're actually copies of Emu. I think that they are tied to his power, though, and that is why this information is being held back. That seems to be where I'm at.
Yeah, because I think the clue there is we have sun gods. So in a world where there are gods, there have to be devils. There are devil fruits. And so even if they aren't devil fruit users, that's not to say that these things are totally unrelated. It doesn't mean that they ate a devil fruit, but if there is a connection between where devil fruits come from and devils themselves, and that being related to these characters in some way, that makes sense to me. So, and there are lots of theories out there in terms of like, okay, why these creatures, right? So the Gyuki, that's something from Naruto that Naruto has played with. I think Killer Bee was a Gyuki, right? Or the Jinchuriki. He's a Jinchuriki and the tailed beast.
Yeah, one of the tailed beasts. Yeah,
the 8 tails. I don't
think it was. Yeah. Is it the 8 tails that was?
That was what I
could have sworn. I could be wrong. It's been a hot minute, admittedly.
Because it has
I'm willing
the horns.
To be wrong on that. Yeah.
And then a Feng Shi is like a Chinese mythology creature, a boar-like creature, known as a rain deity. And so that is something that we have all kinds of clues in terms of, like, again, sun god is related to weather. So if there's like other weather things happening with these creatures, I think that that's worth, keeping in mind. The Bakotsu is something that is like a straight up yokai. I don't know, like, I know it's like a Japanese like folktale thing, but I don't know much about it besides that. And then, and the freezing powers too is something that I genuinely I don't know. And then the sandworm just straight up seems to be doomed. Like, I genuinely think that's all that's really trying to do.
Well, so number one, Oda being a Dune head just checks out. Yes. That makes sense.
Of course, the character that looks like Abraham Lincoln is like the American.
but notably, there is a Mongolian kind of like death worm kind of entity in their kind of mythological history that Herbert also pulled from. So it looks like that might actually be the role that this is playing, though the teeth specifically are probably a Dune thing. Like, again, it makes perfect sense. I don't think some people posited like, oh, Oda got Dune pilled the past couple years. No, he probably read it in the 80s.
It did strike me, by the way.
OG.
It did strike me that the sandworm kind of had like a scar on its face that it reminds me a lot of Laboon. And I was like, Laboon, what have you done? What deal with the devil have you? But no, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, there the sandworm has kind of the most interesting design because in every panel it looks just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like something about it. I don't know if that's just me, but I
And I
kind of
think
like I couldn't tell if it was like
Mhm.
supposed to be an X. Is it supposed to be something else? Hopefully, next chapter gives us a little bit more clarity.
I do think that there is also apparently a connection between the like awakened clouds appear on all of these creatures. So that makes me even more sure that this is related to devil fruits. I think it's its own thing. I don't think that they're devil fruit users, but I think the concepts of awakening a devil fruit and whatever they have awakened are in the same zone somehow. I feel like they have to be because they have some kind of mythical quality, but it just seems like dark and different, like kind of like just evil in a way that is different from an awakened, even Lucci is like an awakened, right? He has his own clouds, but it is different.
Yeah, Lucci's are far more slim. These look a lot like what Luffy has, but just palette swapped. I'm actually really curious to see how the anime handles this.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have notes from Oda's team on how this is supposed to look versus like Rob Lucci's or anything else. Again, if this is some sort of extension of Emu's, presumed devil fruit, since we're working off of that logic, that would make sense that they would take that form because like he's the one that's actually awakened would be the idea, right? Like,
yeah,
but it's one of those things that seems weird because the other thing is like, okay, so they've been telepathically communicating this whole time. Why does Emu use a snail to call them then? Doesn't that seem risky?
I don't know because if there's a telepathy thing going on, I do wonder if it has something to do with the magic circles, not necessarily like the characters can always just do this at will necessarily, because then why would they always have to be in the same room?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen them in the same room. It's postulation, I'm assuming, but there's a lot of questions that I have at this point about this whole shadow government because right now, like, what is the point? Like, what is the point here? Why hide all of this? I don't really see.
I wonder honestly if Oda is going to be like ultimately like fascists are dumb and like he's going to kind of break apart the world government in that way of like their downfall really comes down to the fact that there really is no good reason for anything that they're doing. But like I think he's going to hopefully like avoid that apathy, or that sort of sympathy for.
That's kind of how we got here, right? Like that like they've known this whole time that there's a pirate running around with D initial with rubber powers and just never took the time to put two and two together because it was below their pay grade. And then one of them finally has to deal with this kid. And even then barely puts the effort in because it is still ultimately beneath him to get his own literal hands dirty. And then look at how badly the situation has gotten because of this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the hubris, the pride cometh before the fall, so to speak, is very much here. But I do imagine there's some logic in like why the Gorosei have functioned this way. My guess, like, things like why did Emu call on the snail that one time? Why are they all in the same room? It may just be to obscure the reality of it. Like, could you imagine if we had the information that the Gorosei could telepathically communicate 10 years ago even?
Well, I mean, we were like, flipping chairs earlier in this arc when one of them moved and like left Mary Joa.
Yeah, exactly.
To think we're in this place now. That was even, I think, before the Reverie when we saw them do the transformation.
Well, I mean, it was, man, like we didn't know their names. Oda held so much information back about these characters for so long.
Yeah.
And we've mostly been just grasping at straws, talking about like the sword that Ethan Barron has. Like, that's about the most reasonable piece of information we've ever been able to pull out until very recently.
Yeah, so, and I want to point something out. Two interesting things about that. One, them being the fact that when he uses the attack, so his yokai is based on like a horse that burns to death, and like its soul becomes like evil or whatever. It looks like he literally transforms back into like mortal form, like halfway. So there's something really different about this power where he's able to like half transform so he can use his sword.
It's
And
like
also-
a really unique hybrid form.
Yes, exactly. And I think there's something also very interesting to the idea of ice powers coming from a character who seems to have like some kind of underworldness to him.
Yep.
And so like, and also is the skeleton character. And this got me thinking a lot about who are other characters who are connected to like soul things, right? Besides Brooke.
Yeah.
Big Mom in a big way. Like the idea of like turning inanimate objects, like, and using transferring souls. The Kazenbo is kind of like this, where it was like the darkness of a soul just like lashing out, right? Like these forms and stuff, they are kind of similar to these. I just wonder if there is like some connection between that and devils or whatever, because if you're playing around in the underworld, why do you have ice powers, Brooke? And why is Big Mom able to manifest these like soul collecting demon things that kind of look eerily like the Kazenbo that Conjuro, whatever his stupid name is, summit at the end of Wano? So I'm just saying, we have the pieces. Can we put them together?
It still feels like, Oda threatened that when we like encountered Vegapunk, the truth of like what a devil fruit is going to be like made clear.
We talked about wishes earlier, and the name of this is Starfall.
Well, yeah, right.
Devil fruits are supposed to be like fulfilled wishes, right?
Well, so here's my controversial take. I never thought that itself was the revelation, because it's such a throwaway line, and it doesn't really work. What does that mean exactly? People manifested devil fruits with their dreams. Okay, but that doesn't really answer, like, how does a devil fruit form? Why do they have the rules that they work with? Why are they tied to the sea? There's still so much that we're missing here. And I feel like things like the connection between this power and Brooke, like, it really wants you thinking Brooke during this segment for sure.
They've brought up, didn't they bring up the Atom Tree too? And that's like the long speculated, like where the devil fruits like even show up.
That is right. That's long speculated, but that's all speculation. It is all kind of like supposition based on like, well, it is an important tree, yada, yada, yada. But like devil fruits incarnate all over the sea. So we're still missing, I think, the actual logic here. And
but we're going to Elbaf, which could theoretically, you know what I mean?
I think we may still get it before we leave here. I think we're going to get at least a little bit more clarity, just a titch. Maybe it's the reveal of like where the limits on the Gorosei are. Maybe it's them just saying it out loud. I don't know. But it really does feel like, because these guys seem to follow some of the rules, like the powers displayed here are powers we've seen before, just elevated in various ways. And, the clouds again, like there has to be like a connective tissue between all of this that is still being held back. That has to be what it is.
We didn't see Workery do anything. I mean, technically Saturn didn't do anything either. So he's like the Bork character, and I love how the design plays his mustache into the tusks. Just love it. Just plainly love it. So I'm a little bit like, okay, so what's he gonna do here? Because it's right now, I think he is in the shot, like he's kind of behind Saturn. It looks like he's kind of hanging back. So like, what is he gonna do necessarily? Like, I guess like the Giants are in action.
He's a boar. He's gonna charge, right? Like,
I guess
that's the next course of action, right? Like I posited this in the Discord that, like, with the information that we have, the reason that they're operating so quickly here is because they do not have to explain themselves. They don't have to tell each other what they're doing. They're already talking. They're already making a plan. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this. Okay, we're going to stab the Sun Kid. Okay, that didn't work. I'm going under to eat it. Like, you're a boar. Don't run us over, please. Like, that kind of thing is more or less happening in real time. So I imagine now that Dorry and Brogy are here, and presumably the other giants that were following them, now a 4-tusked boar just running at them seems like a pretty reasonable attack. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I generally am kind of curious, like, what can Dorry and Brogy really effectively do here? I'm still so curious about how this is going to play out necessarily, because if they hold off the 5 elders so Luffy can get away, I don't know. Like, do they just die? Is it because they haven't seen Usopp? Like, it just seems a little bit like, okay, something's got to come to a head here.
It's gotta be some sort of disruption to put a distance between them, right?
Yeah, the same kind of thing as like Shanks showing up or something, but I mean different, but like, you know, some kind of I don't know how many other characters can show up at this point, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if that's really going to do it.
I mean, at the very least, it's one of those things. Like the fastest member of the Gorosei seems to be indisposed because he's over on, like, at this point, the other side of the island cutting robots. So, you know, and also let's be clear here. Sabo got away from these guys, so it is possible to do this. So even if it's just literally the Giants take Luffy in a ball and just fuck him and then book it, I don't know. Maybe that's enough.
Or we can be even sillier. Emu shows up because he wants to meet Luffy, and he realizes the Gorosei left, and the Gorosei like, "What are you doing?" And Emu pops in, and it's just like,
what if he stops them? What if because you know this is interesting.
The petulant child, yeah.
Yeah, we've floated that idea that it's a childlike behavior, but what if it's we hit the countdown, the clock goes off, everything goes to crap, and Emu's like, okay, bring it on back. I have a new idea. Bring it on back. We're gonna regroup. We need to start doing some fascism.
Or he's just like, I don't want to kill him yet. He's fun.
He's fun, or like you said, he wants to talk to him. He wants to gloat. Maybe, I don't know. Like there's
it's
a
too
lot
late,
of
Straw Hat Luffy. You're not gonna win.
You're not.
I have the mother
Joy
flame.
Boy. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know how this plays out in such a way, but there has to be some kind of disruption. Speaking of disruption, if our good pal Mars gets through that Labo phase, there's some Seraphim in there that are probably anxious to get out of their bubbles.
Yeah. We still don't know what's going on with them. We still have the Iron Giant, who
I've just chosen to block that out of my mind for now. When and if we get back to it.
I honestly, look, I just want the Iron Giant to show up because I feel like we're at the point where he's gotta, right? Because like at this point, like we have 7 minutes. Is that the disruption, Travis? Is that what if it could bring Emu? Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just kind of like,
this is not the thing that brings out Emu, though, right? Like actually brings him out. That again, that would just beg the question of why hide him in the first place. But I don't know.
Yeah,
these days, I mean, he's technically exposed at this point, even though he doesn't know it.
One question I have: do the Giants know about Nika?
It seems
are they going to because they recognize Luffy? They didn't seem surprised by his form, right? And they saw his big bounty poster and everything. Is there going to be a sort of like?
Didn't they say Sun God earlier though?
Yeah. So like
when they showed up.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of curious, like, shouldn't there be sort of like something, if there is going to be something that kind of like interrupts the Gorosei attack, it could be them, being stopped in their tracks by the whole Nika thing. Because if that's the case, I don't know. I just foresee a situation where the Giant shows up because like the Nika thing gets brought up or something, and it all kind of like narratively ties together, and then you have like Giants, Iron Giant, Gorosei. I don't know. I just want the Iron Giant to show up. I'm trying to come up with a way where it can happen.
It's so wild because it feels like we're close to the end. Like it feels like it, and also it doesn't feel like it. Like we could wrap this up in like 2 chapters if Oda really, really wanted to at this kind of like tempo. But there's still so many questions. And this is not an island where we're going to be able to revisit. Like whatever else happens, this island is not surviving.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case. And I still like the idea, though, of Punk Records flying away somehow.
Floating up.
Yeah, like the movie Up.
And Enel comes by and picks it up. And
real quick, let's talk about Lucci. It looks like this fight's pretty much done. It's not 100% guaranteed like that he's KO'd, But I think that Zoro has done enough here where he, like, Jinbei can show up and be like, let's go. and Zoro's like, yeah, I think I got him, because that looks like a pretty brutal attack. And I think bringing the Sanji line into it, he's a liability.
It's so good because, like, people freak the heck out. They've been freaking the heck out over this. They're like, why isn't Zoro one-shotting Lucci like Luffy did? That didn't happen. That's not like...
Yeah, Luffy and
that's not how this
Lucci
works.
skirmished.
Why is Zoro going to even bother fighting if he's not getting something from it? Like fighting an opponent and learning something from that fight is literally how Zoro progresses through this series. I can't believe I have to explain the basics to everybody, but like here we are once again being like, why is Zoro struggling? Because he's trying to learn something. He learned way back in East Blue. You can't just fire off your most powerful attack and end the fight. That's not how this works. It's not how it's ever worked. Mihawk
he tried to do that against Mihawk.
Yeah, Mihawk literally cut that into him. So every single fight since then has been him intentionally trying to hone a skill, intentionally trying to push that power level. Everything from his fight from Mr. One to the fight with King has been this very active, like, I'm going to learn to do something. I'm going to break a barrier.
He did that with Kaido, cutting the flames like Kinemon.
Kaido, yeah. And so here he is in front of an awakened devil fruit user who gave his captain one of the hardest fights that he's ever had, regardless of what happened in the rematch. That's just true. This is a chance to prove that he can scale now. That's what's happening here. He's seeing how long he can drag this out. And so when Sanji, much like the Zoro fan base, starts talking crap about their boy, he's like, okay, fine. Cool, I guess I'm going to be cool now. And once again, we've been vindicated. He wasn't taking it seriously to begin with.
You know what I like about this too, by the way? I really like, it feels like an effective way for Oda to be like, to answer the question of like former One Piece villains. You know, why don't they come back more often? And this is an example of like, even if Lucci comes back and gets a power up and all of this stuff, the Straw Hats get way more XP points than these people. Because by the time Lucci can't even compete with Zoro. And Lucci originally was like stronger than Luffy.
Yeah, I want the fights to be like this. I want it to be at least a little bit of a back and forth. I'm not here, again, power scaling is always a pain in the butt because it's like, realistically, what people want to do is they want to see their favorite character just win. And it's like, that's not interesting. And One Piece isn't even primarily a battle manga where like all the choreography is supposed to make sense and like refine this. But that's true of every battle manga. It's not like Goku always wins, sure, but it's how he gets there that makes it compelling, right? So this makes perfect sense. Like, I would not think Lucci could beat Zoro. I don't think anybody reasonably would expect that. The crew doesn't even expect that. It's just, hey, when he finishes, could you go make sure he doesn't get lost? Like, that's why Jinbei was after him. It wasn't really to help. It was to go be his compass. Like, nobody thought he was good. I don't even think Sanji really thought he was losing. I think Sanji was like, could you stop playing with your food, please? We're in deep crap. But, like, Sanji understands the situation. Zoro doesn't even know. He just knows there's a lot of powerful hockey. So, you know, this is all reasonable within these characters' behavior. And yeah, it does feel good to see Lucci get knocked down another peg. If he does come back, you know, Sanji can fight him next time, and it'll be a little bit of a closer fight. That's the one that's going to get us emails this week. That'll be the line.
Speaking of which, let's continue this conversation by reading the comments. So M. Joker Boy said, I don't know what's on Dragon's mind, but for me, this is the best time to attack Mary Joa. Basically, its defense is down without the 5 elders. So A, Dragon doesn't know that the 5 elders have left Mary Joa, but I think by the time he does, like, I think that opportunity is going to pass. He's too far away. But there is something to that, like, maybe not Dragon. If something could happen in Mary Joa right now, that this would be the time to do it. I've been thinking a lot about, for example, the Impel Down situation. And there are a lot of characters, either en route or in Impel Down, who are just kind of waiting for their moment. And I'm talking about a certain Bone Clay, talking about a certain Doflamingo, and I'm also kind of wondering, cross-skill check-in, if there's going to be a big event happening with one of those factions, even if it's not related to Mary Joa, something, you know what I mean? If there is a character who might be close-ish to Mary Joa, I guess it would be Sabo, but I don't think he has a reason to go there. So yeah, I don't think that's happening.
I mean, Sabo's with Dragon, so whatever Dragon.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Doing. Yeah, he showed up. Yeah, they reunited already. I was thinking of like Lucia and yeah. So yeah, too late. The only thing that would make sense if they tried pursuing Kuma, but it's Kuma like warped. I mean, it's too fast. Like they can't, you know. They also didn't know where he was going.
That does beg a question, though. Do you think the Gorosei have left any kind of indication whatsoever that they have left?
Take it?
Like I want to say no, but like, does Akainu know that like he is now more or less the first line of defense? Yeah, you know,
I doubt he does.
This could be a situation where we cut over to the Holy Knights though, and that little plot line.
Yeah, because Garling, I think, not confirmed is there, but has been there recently at the very least.
Right,
Figerlin, Garling, whatever his name, and he does seem like he might be good at fighting. So, well,
here's an idea.
I don't want to.
Here's an idea. If it does become discovered that the Gorosei are not present, could this be an attempt at a power play? Since, you know, all the Celestial Dragons are kind of selfish buttheads anyway, like, could any of them aspire to those seats?
It's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. Worth thinking about. All right. I think somebody said in the comments that after this next chapter, Oda might be taking like a 3-week break. So that's a rumor out in the wild right now.
We got that confirmed, actually.
Oh, there you go. Well, at least now we know. Well deserved though, because these have been packed. All right, so this is from Ben Tham. I don't think I've seen his comments here before. At first, I liked the idea of the Gorosei being more obscure yokai. It seemed more mysterious, but I'm starting to think Oda had certain key visuals in mind to start with and base his choices around that or some other such expedient reason. Needing one of the Gorosei to swiftly disable the Pacifista, swiftness, horse, wanting one to swallow Luffy, only to be liberated in a manner reminiscent of the dinosaur that ate Luffy in Little Garden. I didn't even know. That's a great point. I still think they look cool, though, and I like the idea of them springing into action after so many years. Yeah, I think yes to all of that. And maybe that means Warcury is going to get, you know, his moment in the next chapter, doing something.
Yeah, this is probably a situation where Oda has had this, again, all of this information's been held back for so long. This has probably been brewing in some form or another, like, I want to say gestating, but that's not right. You know, brewing in the background for a really, really long time, even if like it wasn't locked in back in Jaya. Like, it's very clear that this back part of the arc has been structured in such a way to let this kind of information out, let these monsters do their thing and act in ways that would otherwise, you know, feel almost too tailored to the situation because it's been constructed that way. Luffy can bounce on the ground. Okay, the sandworm goes under the ground. The Labo phase is protected by a shield that nobody can get through. Kizaru's out of commission. Okay, well, surprise, here's the Itsumade to go through it as many times as he needs to, like that kind of situation, right? These have been carefully constructed to actually bring them to the forefront right now. So it's probably a more thoughtful process. I am curious if we'll get some SBS details now that like Oda can talk about these things. I would love to know the actual inspiration for each of these.
Dill Piccolo said, dude, Zoro just pulled out long-distance observation hockey like an L. He totally heard Sanji say he is a liability. My reading of this is that he heard it over the radio. The only thing is, if he had the radio, then he knew they were trying to evacuate, but he wasn't communicating with them. So I guess it's possible that he wasn't listening and it was observation hockey. I didn't take it that way.
I think Jinbei is close enough now to where it's audible.
Oh, maybe he heard it over the radio on his... That could make sense.
Because I mean, if you're Sanji, you're basically screaming right now. Everything's going to hell that you probably can't be heard otherwise. And like Jinbei is moving fast. So it makes perfect sense to like Zoro to just pick up on that last line because he doesn't hear the rest of it. He doesn't react to it. It's not like he's being selfish or again reckless. He doesn't have this information yet. So the only thing he hears is Sanji calling him a liability. Of course, it's going to tick him off.
And it is a fun gag thing. I am honestly like a little bit like, well, the next chapter is 11:11. And so why, I don't know if that's going to be a big Zoro chapter though, because we already saw him do the thing. So I don't know if, I guess if Lucci's still doing, you know.
More time to do the cool thing.
I
time to
guess,
do
yeah.
new cool thing, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
It
it's
seems like
possible.
he got him.
Maybe
But
we'll
see,
just
see.
like randomly be like, oh, we're gonna take a pause for the story and have him visit Ryuma's grave.
Snicker Snack. There's a commenter I recognize. Looking forward to the next Zoro Sanji banter. Zoro don't want to hear it from fourth placer, LOL. Seeing the awakened zones of the 5 elders makes me look back on how Kaido and Big Mom were handicapped by not using Awakening, kind of like how Whitebeard didn't use Haki in Marineford, especially his COC, his I can never say it. Color of Conquerors, right? There's so many names.
Yeah, the Conqueror's Haki is
Color of the Supreme King.
How Viz does it. Yeah, Viz does it just Conqueror's Haki at this point. It's just there's a reason it's easier.
We saw Conqueror's Haki in this with Zoro. Their yokai zones are still awesome, but none of them have the devil tail that pierced Late King Cobra. So that may have been Im-sama. Yeah, I guess I haven't noticed a tail either, and I get I did take it that Emu did that. So okay, Snickersnack calls them awakened zones. Again, we've kind of covered this of like, if they're mythical zones, it seems like it'd be a separate thing from devil fruits because of the summoning circles, the telepathy, like clearly something else. And they also they do not look like mythical zones that we've seen before. But this does bring up Kaido and Big Mom again as characters who people argue back and forth on whether or not they awakened their fruits because they didn't have the halos and all that stuff. I know we've talked about this before, but I do wonder about it still a little bit of like why it was just never stressed, right? Because I know Kaido was a bit more of like, I don't need to awaken my devil fruit because Haki is everything. And I think in Big Mom's case, I just wonder if she just never was that kind of character that like, I want to know a little bit more of like how the Conqueror's King thing really comes to be and why certain characters have it and why some don't, because these are monstrous characters, like powerful, like world powers. So the fandom needs to know because it's going to cause so many issues and consternation.
I think in the case of Kaido, like, why wasn't Kaido awakened? Because Luffy awakening is kind of the thing that pushed it over the top, right? So like if Kaido also then goes into an awakened form, then like it's just like here on Egghead, right? You still have to have that push and pull intention. Eventually it just gets to be too much. In the case of Wano, again, hindsight being 2020, I think people aren't as fed up with it as they were at the time, but people were pretty fed up with it. I get the impression Oda was actually getting kind of fed up with it because he kind of speed ran the ending of that to move on to the next exciting thing. So it's one of those things where it's just like, it's the power scaling problem again, right? Like I don't want to just keep like banging on one part of this fandom, but like every single time a thing is opened up, it becomes this situation where like, oh, well, why didn't this character use this? Well, because it didn't exist, technically. If Luffy could use Haki when he was fighting Crocodile, the tension of Alabasta goes away entirely, right? Like we're learning as we go. That information is a key factor here when we have it, when we don't have it. And so it's like, did Whitebeard use his Conqueror's Haki? Not really, because it's supposed to be a big deal when Luffy does, right? You can't just layer that on top of, oh, but Whitebeard could do this the whole time. It's not that big of a deal. Like it's I don't want to cinema sins the heck out of this, I guess is what this always feels like to me. Kaido was extremely powerful, particularly the Haki situation to be this kind of insurmountable wall. Doflamingo could awaken his devil fruit because that was to introduce that concept in more detail. Like it served a story purpose. And getting over that was the first real like test and proof that like you don't have to be awakened to beat an awakened devil fruit user, because Luffy wasn't. Though you could make the argument that things like Gear 4's different forms were heading in that direction, it wasn't really the same thing. So for me, especially in the case of like Luffy with the different gear forms and everything, I feel like awakening is less of a state like Super Saiyan or like Naruto's Nine Tails form or anything, but it's more of a state of progression. Like there is a moment where you just unlock a whole new suite of abilities, but everything you do up until that point is like building blocks on that. Like an awakened Kaido would just be, kind of that fire Kaido we got at the end, right? Like, what more would you really want from that? What is that?
Well, I wonder if it's harder to awaken a mythical Zoan, you know,
I mean,
and if there's,
probably.
you know, compared to awakening the leopard fruit or the string fruit. I don't know.
Well,
And
mean,
I think
they have wills,
yeah.
right? They have powerful wills, hypothetically. So
Exactly.
sure, maybe that's the case.
It is a different like level of power compared to Law's awakened fruit and kids, even though like clearly like it was very, very powerful, you know, even still. So yeah,
it's even possible that just they were complacent themselves. They were the height of power. Why get more powerful? You were already the top, and Roger's dead.
Yeah, and I think for, you know, Big Mom, like her thing was like power is in having children. You know, it wasn't necessarily like she was already so strong and all that. So yeah, I think that's a fair point.
It's about philosophy, right? Like
Ignitia,
that's what's fighting.
Ignitia has a great comment here. Kind of breaks down the different elders here, and so I'm gonna read this out. This is interesting. So, Ignitia said, Ushiani Gyuki, a Japanese spider yokai known to reside on beaches and attack people who walk there, likely a model of a spider fruit. Itsumade, a Japanese bird yokai whose cries are always, quote, until when, question mark. So Itsumade, question mark, in Japanese. Likely a model of a bird fruit. Feng Shi, a Chinese boar yaogai, known for rampaging the countryside. Yaogai, people will recognize that from Fallout. Likely a model of a pig boar fruit. Bakotsu, a Japanese horse yokai known to have been born from the remains of a horse that was burnt to death. Likely a model of a horse fruit. Sandworm, a Western creature based on various different giant worm-like monsters, such as the Mongolian death worm, like you said, Travis, and Dune's famous sandworm, likely a model of a bug fruit. So I kind of like this idea of like based on the models of the fruits, but not the fruits themselves. That, like, again, I just think that there is something that really rings true with that. So that's a really cool breakdown. Glad Anisha made that comment there.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. I do have. Oh yeah. Gembug said, Black Blade confirmed on the coolest old guy ever. I don't want to call him the coolest old guy ever, but...
So not to be a pedant, but that's just hockey. It's not a Black Blade. People went back and checked. The sword has been unsheathed before, and it was a normal sword. So, unfortunately, not the coolest old guy.
And then should we refresh people on Black Blades?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
basically,
can talk
like
about
Mihawk has a Black Blade. Literally, it's a black, like, you know.
Not hockey as far as we know. Though at this point, I'm starting to wonder if it is. And
well,
that's going to be the full reveal.
I brought that whole thing up, right, about how, like, I think Luffy's hat is coated in black in hockey, you know, hence it doesn't, you know. And I think that, like, I would get, like, Ryuma's sword is a Black Blade, right? So, like, that being coated in hockey kind of makes sense for that character too, just based on, you know, the way that they function. I don't know. I think there's something to that. I'm sticking to my. It's not even a theory at this point, but
the Luffy hat thing makes sense to me because he has gotten that thing damaged before, and you know, he doesn't want it to happen again. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
SSJ Magus said, "This is oh my gosh, this is great. I'm suspecting that Vegapunk's broadcast isn't actually originating from Egghead. Instead, when his heart stopped, it sent a signal to some other island where the recording is being broadcast from. This could be why the Vegapunks were so smug about it, not really mattering how long a delay they put on the broadcast, and nobody will be able to stop it because anybody who tries will be attacking the wrong place." That is brilliant, actually. Vegapunk is smart. And so, like, the idea that could be the case, yes. That is actually really, what if it was from Punk Hazard even? Or, I don't know. That's actually a bit of a stretch. But, like,
what if that's why he called Dragon? Was to set that up. And that's why they haven't made any actions.
Travis Highness, you said something so brilliant that it brought me to singing. Because
you're about to actually get much higher there, man.
How amazing would that be? To see, because that would be such a great payoff to that conversation at the beginning. Travis.
That's it, right? Like,
I hope so much that
everybody's
right.
Like, why didn't Dragon leave? Why not go after Kuma? Why not do any of this? Because they're protecting it. Like, he's like, I'm probably going to die soon. I need you to protect this. That would make so much sense. So between you, SSJ Magus, and my singing, we have
stumbled upon something that could be so okay.
We've cracked this wide open.
Let's see though. Let's see. Watch it just not be true. Oda's just like, nah, it's punk records, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Where else would it be, possible to? I don't know. Wow, that's my goodness. Cherry Apple said, "Holy crap! Is this what Sabo saw in Mary Joa? I understand why he was so scared now. Also, yay, cover story about Yamato. I miss. Oh well, they say him, but I'm happy he's having fun. Yamato's confirmed gender is." Or like pronouns are she.
Pronouns are she, her, according to the Viva card.
The Viva cards, yeah, and Oda confirms those. So,
but Yamato remains.
We don't have to go through this thing again, right?
She, her, king. That's it. That's Yamato's gender.
Oh, Endrian echoing something I said. Bakotsu seemingly fighting the same way as Brook with freezing Aido strikes. Looks like Zoro got tired of holding back too. Wonder why he was. Just trying to refine his technique against a strong opponent before he need to move on. Sanji definitely struck a nerve though, got him to bust out the conquerors. Yeah, I think we're totally of a kind on that comment for sure. Yeah, we've already explained our thoughts on that. Although Adams K0, another commenter you've seen before, said, invented instant coffee, only killed 3 minutes. That's funny. The guy with the Bakotsu form seems to have an underworld theme, given his use of icy slashes. Plus, it's allegedly a monster born of a horse that was burned to death. And for Zoro, stop trying to hit him and hit him. That's funny. So were you going to say something about the coffee?
I was going to say the coffee thing's great because it is effectively like every like if you ever wanted proof that like Oda might actually be watching people's YouTube like theories and stuff. He's literally putting the sponsor ad reads into the stinking manga now. Like Vegapunk's like, I'm gonna tell you the truth of the world, but first, this video is brought to you by Vega Coffee. Like just one drop will turn like that's
I
what
love
it
that,
is.
Though. That's so great.
So
I mean, that's
good.
such a yeah.
And then it's like being played over this ominous room. Like the anime's gonna have so much fun with that. I can't wait.
It's such a great gag. Yeah, it's like this horror defying, like all these monsters like descending upon Vega Coffee. Drink it up. It's perfect. Also, yeah, the one other thing that the horse and the burn to death. I already kind of mentioned this, but once again, man with the burn scars. I still like the idea that, you can get the burn scars from ice. I know we already kind of dispensed with like Aokiji and Saul, like that being the kind of thing. It seems like Saul really isn't the man with the burn scars, but I don't know. Like we shouldn't say that. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Freezer burn is a thing. It totally is possible.
It's not a great burn too.
No.
All right. And then last comment here is from Paint to Master 2000. Is that the first full splash panel since chapter 800? Amazing. The stakes keep picking up each chapter. Also, that coffee invention was a fun way for Oda, Vegapunk, to troll the audience while they're waiting for the big moment. Yeah, I didn't check, but that sounds right. It feels like it has been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's the thing. Somebody actually went back and checked, did a count. Because usually we get the 2-page spreads that have like little panels on the side because Oda's always trying to jam in reactions and stuff. But this is I don't know if you know this, but the last one was the cups with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Another very pivotal story moment. So it's very fitting. This is, they're in line exactly with how you would expect it to be. In like it parallels where they sit in the room, how they're introduced. Everything is like perfectly planned out, and it's such a terrifying image that it anything else would be not appropriate. So once again, Oda is the master of paneling.
The anime is going to be so cool too when it gets to this. Just showing the like yokai devil forms like on Egghead Island, this like futuristic like paradise. We're seeing it in the anime right now, and I think that juxtaposition is going to be so dynamic. It's going to be so haunting, because it's going to feel like a post-apocalyptic thing, kind of like the Ancient Kingdom, which is supposed to be technologically advanced. So once again, lots of rhyming. Once again, a sign that we need that Iron Giant. Travis, I want him in the next chapter. I'm putting my foot down.
It's such a tease. We haven't even checked it. It's been weeks now since we've checked in. It still hasn't moved. What is the deal? Like it has to mean something, right? Like I can't make sense. It is possibly the hardest thing for me to put my finger on. Like, what is this thing's place? Because it attacked Mary Joa 200 years ago. Why? What triggered it then? What is going on?
I did see one theory where people were speculating if what woke it up was like the song, that's like the Nika song, the rhythm of everything like that, and it being similar to the heartbeat. And so like it woke up like thinking that it was like years and years ago, and then went to marry Joa, and it having, I think the theory also stated it had to do with like the slaves there possibly being like why it woke up, and that being like a special reason why they want this like history erased, because if there is some kind of cue or trigger or something like that that wakes up these creatures like the Iron Giant, that would give them a reason to be like, oh, this history needs to be erased, because we could, there could be like sleeper cells of like iron soldiers. But this isn't even part of the theory. This is something I'm just like riffing on right now. But I do think there's something interesting about that, because it ties into the revolution. It ties into like what the revolution could really do and why it really is so dangerous. And that is like essentially like, we don't want anyone to rise up against us. And if the slaves rise up against us and they know this special song, there could be powerful weapons, ancient weapons. I don't know. Like, is that what kind of like sets them? Is it like a song? I know the Bink Sake thing is a thing that people continue to say is the One Piece. The idea of like, it's a song, it's a rhythm, it's some kind of like jubilance that triggers a world event. I feel like that's been one of the oldest One Piece theories, the idea that it's like something that's going to trigger like a cataclysmic thing that is going to make the whole world one, piece or whatever. So anyway, that was a rambling tangential thing from me.
I do like the idea that like the thing that they have not been able to squash with all of their power is like the idea of stories. Like the knowledge, right? The info. I've been talking about knowledge a lot today. I don't know why, but the actual details they've been able to squash. A lot of the technology they've been able to squash, but the stories they've never been able to completely squash. Whether Bing Sasake is like a direct map to the One Piece or not, there are a lot of connections there. It's a familiar melody. Brook himself said it's a song that's persisted for potentially hundreds of years. Things like the lore of devil fruits and even the stories of the sun god among the slaves, they couldn't squash that, even though they would kill people for singing the song, right? It persisted past Kuma's time to when Who's Who was enslaved. Like that's always been kind of this persistent thing, and a lot of it has been stories. In Wano, that Hio, the old man, thought that like Luffy resembled a deity in Wano too, right? When he was in Gear 4th specifically. Like those kind of things have always been like this underlying, at the risk of invoking Game of Thrones, like the power of stories, that really, really funny ending they came up with. But like here, there's a lot of merit to it. Like Bonnie's entire culmination of her journey here has been rooted in these stories her father told her, and it turns out they're real. Like maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe where the Gorosei come from in this world, like where their powers are manifest from, are for like terror stories that people tell, like dark Grimm's fairy tales. I don't know. Could be something there.
Well, that's a good way to end this story. At least the story of this podcast episode. Not the podcast itself, don't worry. But thank you always so much, everybody, for listening and chiming in and everything like that. And of course, don't forget to join up the Discord to hang out with us whenever you want. And hopefully, I'm going to remember what Discord is next week. No promises, though. But yeah, I think we do have the next chapter. I'm itching to read it tomorrow. And Travis, I think like for our break weeks, we still have some stuff on the docket. If for 3 weeks, I think we have plenty of stuff to choose from. I will be in Japan in April, so I might be like literally like leaving as soon as the chapters kick up again. So that might be unfortunate, but we'll figure something out. But yeah, that's about it from us though. Thanks as always, all.
Thank you.